In our lesson today, we are going to be focused on solving for the sides and angles of triangles that are no longer right triangles. So because we are no longer working with right triangles, SOHCAHTOA is no longer going to be an option for us. So in this lesson and in the next lesson, we are going to be learning two different methods for solving for pieces of a triangle when we don't have a right angle. So today's topic is about a law called the law of sines. So the law of sines is used to solve for missing sides and angles for triangles that are not right triangles. It doesn't matter how big, how small, or how they are drawn. There's no requirements anymore. The most important thing that is needed in order to use the law of sines is something that I refer to as an angle-side pair. What that means is that you must know the value of both an angle and a side that share the same letter. Now what you will notice, this is an example of a triangle that you're going to be working with today. The angles, we will always use capital letters. Capital A, capital B, capital C. When we are labeling the sides, we will always use lowercase letters. And here's what is important. Angle A will always be directly across from side A. That's why that's a lowercase a. Angle B will always be directly across from side B, which is lowercase, and angle C will always be directly across from side C. So when you are drawing your triangles throughout this lesson, you're going to draw a triangle that looks just like this. Capital A across from little a, capital B across from little b, and capital C across from little c. Now once you have the triangle drawn, you actually need to know what this magic formula is that we're going to be using. So the law of sines looks like this. The law of sines says that the sine of angle A divided by the sine of side A equals the sine of angle B divided by the side B, which also equals the sine of angle C divided by side C. Now, I know in math we don't normally see two equal signs in an equation, and that's not what we're going to be doing when we're solving math. When you're solving these problems, you're going to be using two of the three pieces. You're going to use A and B together, or A and C together, or B and C together. You're never going to use all three at one time, always two. And one of the ones you're using is always that angle side pair that you know both values for. So if you know both capital A and lowercase a, this is a guaranteed piece that you're going to be using. So that being said, let's look at some step-by-step instructions. So to use the law of sines, first, draw yourself a picture. Okay? Label your angles that you know, label your sides that you know, and the pieces that you don't know, make sure you write the appropriate letter where it goes. Then, choose the two parts of the law of sines that you need to use and plug in the information you know. So if this is the part that you struggle with, again, one of the parts you're using is your angle side pair. The other piece that you're going to use is simply, what's the other variable I know something about? Once you've plugged in your information, then you're going to use a skill that you learned way back in middle school. You're going to use cross multiplication, and then you're going to finish solving for your missing piece of the puzzle. Now, all the way through step 3, you haven't used your calculator yet. You've had no need to use that calculator. Step 4 says don't use your calculator until now. until you are ready to put the information all at one time in the calculator, because then you avoid rounding errors. So let's take a look at some examples. We'll work through several together. You'll try a couple on your own. So we are solving for all missing parts of the triangle. So first step, always draw a picture. So I'm going to draw a triangle. Capital A, lowercase a across from it. Capital B, lowercase b across from it. Capital C, lowercase c across from it. Now let's write in the information we know. We know that in A, I'm going to write the number 115, because that's an angle. In B, I'm going to write 27. And then on side A, I'm going to write the number 45. So that is what it means by setting up your picture. Next thing, we have to start solving. Now, notice it says here, solve for all missing parts. What that means is you need to have a number in all three corners and a number on all three sides. So I'm going to start with the easiest piece of this entire picture to solve for. If I know two angles of a triangle, I can always find the third one. Because you should know by now that the angles of a triangle always add up to 180. So we're going to find capital C, I'm going to take 180 degrees, subtract 27, subtract 115. So if you type that in your calculator, you should get 38 degrees. I know that value. I'm going to put it on my triangle. So now we're ready to start solving for the sides. This is where the law of sines comes into play. So we need to decide which two parts am I using. Well, if you look at your picture, which letter do we know both values for? Well, we know both values for A. Capital A and lowercase a. That's going to be a guaranteed part that you're going to use. The other part, we can use either B to start with or C. Eventually, we got to do both. So let's start with the B part. So the parts of law of sines that we're going to use, we're going to use the sine of A divided by A equals the sine of B divided by B. And we're going to plug in capital A, little a, and capital B. So sine capital A is 115 divided by little a is 45. Sine capital B is 27. We do not know lowercase b. So now, if we look at our steps, we've set up our equation and we've plugged in our information. Now we're going to use cross multiplication. Well, hopefully you remember in middle school, cross multiply means those two get multiplied and those two get multiplied. So sine of 115 times b is simply b times the sine of 115. 45 times the sine of 127. No, you cannot multiply 45 and 27. That's a side, that's an angle, they don't mix. So we're simply going to write it as 45 times the sine of 27. Now we need to finish getting this guy by himself. That means the opposite of multiplying. We have to divide by the sine of 115 on both sides. Those cancel, and b is by itself. So, get your calculators handy so you can follow along how we type this in. We're going to type all of this in at one time. but I am going to talk about some things that we need to make sure we do along the way. So hopefully everybody's ready to type. So 45 times sine 27. Now pause here. Notice right here we have a parenthesis. You need to close that parenthesis, otherwise you're going to get a wrong answer. Now you can divide by the sine of 1/15. Close parenthesis. Hit enter, and we're going to round to 1 decimal, so 22.5. And I'm going to come over to B, and I'm going to write 22.5 on my picture. So now, all we have to do is find one more piece of the puzzle. We're going to use the law of sines again. We're going to keep the A part. Sine of A over A, but now we're switching to the C part. Sine of C over C. So the A part, sine of 1/15 over 45 equals the sine of C, which is 38, divided by little c that we don't know. We're going to cross multiply. So sine of 1/15 times c is simply c times the sine of 1/15. 45 times the sine of 38 is 45 times the sine of 38. Now we need c by itself. Divide by the sine of 1/15. C is by itself, which is what we wanted. So we're going to again go over to the calculator and type all of this in. Make sure you don't make any mistakes again. 45 times sine 38, close those parentheses, divided by sine 1/15, close parentheses. You get, and we're going to round appropriately, 30 this 6 makes that round up to a 6. So 30.6. I'm going to put that over here in the triangle. And now that I have numbers in every corner and numbers on every side, I know I am done. So let's look at the next example. So now that we've tried one, we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit. Let's go ahead and set up our picture. So we have A and A, B and B, C and C. So the numbers that I know. In the A angle, I'm going to write 40. C angle is 37. A side is 31. So what's the easiest piece to solve for? The missing angle. So, as you guys know, we're going to take and we're going to make B equal to 180 minus 40 minus 37. So that means, if you pick up your calculator and you type that in, you get that B is 103 degrees. Now, I'm going to go ahead and write that over here. To find the sides, we got to use the law of sines. So which one do we have the angle side pair? That will be A again. We have capital A and little a. So we are going to use, of course, the sine of A over A. Who would you like to find first? Why don't we find C first this time? So we're going to do the sine of C over C. So let's plug in what we know. Sine A is 40. Little a is 31. Big C is 37. Little c we don't know. So we're going to go ahead and cross multiply. Sine of 40 times c is c times the sine of 40 equals 31 times the sine of 37. We need c by itself. That means we're going to divide by the sine of 40 on both sides. Those cancel. So pick up your calculators. Type in 31 times sine 37, close parentheses, divided by the sine of 40. And hopefully you get 29.0. So I'm going to put that over here on my C side. So here's what I would like you guys to do. I want you to pause the video and try and find the B side. So if you don't know where to start, you're going to keep your A parts and you're going to change to your B parts. So pause the video and solve for that B part. Okay, so let's see how you did. So you should have had the sine of 40 over 31 equals the sine of 103 over B. You should have had B times the sine of 40 equals 31 times the sine of 103. You should have divided by the sine of 40 and you get B equals 47.0. So hopefully you got all parts of that triangle correct. So far those two have been pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and move on to example 3 together. So I want to point out right away, look at what we have. We have 1A, 1C, and 1B. We have nothing that matches yet. So let's see if we can fix that problem. So let's draw our triangle. A and little a, B and little b, C and little c. So we know big A is 44, big C is 48, little b is 12. So what can we naturally find first? Hopefully everybody's thinking, we're going to find big B. We're going to find that missing corner. So 180, take away 44, take away 48, put all that in your calculator, and hopefully you get 88. Put that in this corner. So, we had said originally we had no matching pieces. Do you see two letters now that do match? Because I do. I see a B here and a B here. So sometimes you will get that pair once you do a step of work. So we know we're going to use the B parts. So who would you like to find first? Let's find A. So of course, sine of big B is 88. Little b is 12. Sine of big A is 44. Little a we don't know. So cross multiply. Sine of 88 times A. So A times the sine of 88 equals 12 times the sine of 44. Of course, we need a by itself, so we're going to divide by the sine of 88. That gives us a equals, pick up your calculators, 12 times the sine of 44 divided by the sine of 88. Don't forget to close that parenthesis right there. You should have gotten 8.3 for your answer. So let's add that to our picture. So what the only other letter that we still have missing is little c. So we're going to keep our b parts and we're going to switch to our c parts. And you're going to pause the video and you're going to finish that part and see how you did. Alrighty, so let's see what we ended up with. So you should have had the sine of 88 over 12 equals the sine of 48 over c. You should have cross multiplied and gotten c times the sine of 88 equals 12 times the sine of 48. You should have divided by the sine of 88. That leaves you, once you put all that in your calculator, with 8.9. So C is 8.9. Okay, so far, these have pretty much been the same kind of problem. So we're going to switch gears now. We're going to switch to a different type of problem. Because if you notice, now we have one angle and two sides. So this is going to be a little different. We're going to start out the same way though. Draw your picture. A across from little a, B across from little b, and C across from little c. So who do we know? We know that big A is 82, little a is 44, and little b is 33. So the reason I say this problem is different is because every other problem we found the single missing angle right away. We can't do that this time because we only have one angle. So we're going to go straight to the law of sines. Do we have a pair? Yes, we do. We have A and A. So we're definitely using the A parts. So the sine of A over A. Who's the only other letter we know? Well, it's B. So we're going to use the sine of B over B. So let's plug in what we know. Sine big A is 82. Little a is 44. Sine, we don't know big B. We know little b is 33. Notice this is already looking different. It's okay, we'll keep going. We need to do that cross multiplication. So sine of 82 times 33. 33 times the sine of 82 equals 44 times the sine of b. Okay, so again, we got some different stuff going on here. This is where students make their mistakes. Here's the letter we need by itself. You cannot move 44 and the word sine at the same time. The only thing you can move right now is the 44. So I'm going to divide both sides by 44. What that leaves me with is the sine of b. So we're going to have to do some extra work here. But the first thing we need to do is we need our calculators. So we're going to switch to our calculators and we're going to type all of this in the calculator at one time. So make sure you're typing it in right. It is 33 times sine of 82, close that parenthesis, divided by 44. Now notice we don't get any whole numbers. This is not wrong. When we still have the word sine there, I need you to put down several decimals. We're going to do 4 decimals. 0.7427. 0.7427. The reason we are not done is because that sine, this word right here, needs to move over here. Well, hopefully, you've learned that when we need to move the word sine to get the letter by itself, it changes to inverse sine and attaches to whatever is over here. So now we're going to use the calculator a second time to solve for that b value. So we're going to do inverse sine. So second sine, there's your -1, of 0.7427. Now you have your answer. 47 point, this 6 makes 9, round up to 10, so this becomes 48 degrees. So I'm going to put 48 in the B corner. So now I can find my missing corner. I'm going to find my C corner now. So to find my C corner, I'm going to take 180 minus 82 minus 48. So my C corner comes out to be 50 degrees. Put that here. My last piece of the puzzle I need is little c. So we're going to keep the first part of the law of sines, sine of A over A, but we're going to switch to the c parts. So now we're back to like examples 1, 2, and 3. So the sine of A is 82, divided by little a is 44, equals the sine big C is 50, little c, we don't know. Sine of 82 times c equals 44 times the sine of 50. C, got to get rid of all that. Divide by the sine of 82. Calculators, pick them up. 44 times the sine of 50, close parentheses, divided by the sine of 82, and you should get 34.0. And so that's my final piece. So these are a little different, little extra steps in there. We're going to try another one just like it. So let's go ahead and draw our picture. A and little a, B and little b, C and little c. We know big C is 133. We know little b is 26. We know little c is 45. So who do we have a pair? We have big C and little c. So we're using the c parts. And the only other piece that we have is b. So we're going to also use the b parts. So let's plug in what we know. Big C is 133. Little c is 45. Big B, we don't know. Little b is 26. So far, same stuff. Cross multiply. Sine of 133 times 26. So 26 times the sine of 133 equals 45 times the sine of b. We cannot get rid of that. We can only get rid of the 45. So sine of b equals, let's go to our calculators, 26 times the sine of 133, close parentheses, divided by 45. So we're going to have 0.422, and this rounds this up to a 6. So 0.4226. We need to ship this word over here. So b equals inverse sine of 0.4226. So let's come over here. Second sine 0.4226. And this rounds up to 25. So we got 25 degrees going in angle B. So now we should very easily be able to find angle A. So we're going to take 180 minus 25 minus 133. Type that in your calculator. You get 22 degrees. So now we need to stay with the law of sines. We're going to keep the C parts. We're going to switch to the A parts. And you're going to pause the video and finish that part of it, and we'll see how you did. Okay, so let's see what you ended up with. You should have had the sine of 133 divided by 45 equals the sine of 22 divided by little a. You should have had a times the sine of 133 equals 45 times the sine of 22. You should have divided by the sine of 133. A equals 45 times the sine of 22, close parentheses, divided by the sine of 133 gives you 23.0 for A. And we are done with that problem. We are going to look at one very easy word problem. There's a fire, and there are two fire towers. Tower A over here and Tower B. And they are located 10 miles apart. So if you notice the line that connects them, we have 10 miles. There are rangers at each of the fire towers. The ranger at fire tower A spots the fire at 42 degrees, so that's why this angle is 42. And the rangers at fire tower B spot the fire at 64 degrees. We want to know how far from tower A is the fire. So I'm putting an X right there. So if you look, we are looking for an angle side pair. Well, here's the problem. 42 doesn't have a pair. 64 doesn't have a pair. So we need to know this angle. So let's find the missing angle by taking 180 and subtracting 42 and subtracting 64. And that missing angle comes out to 74 degrees. So I'm going to put 74 right here. So now do we have an angle side pair? Absolutely. There's our pair. So because we don't have any letters, we'll just use A. Sine of A over A equals, and we'll use, since this is tower B, we'll use the B parts. Sine of B over B. So, sine, the angle we know is 74. The side we know is 10. Sine, the other angle we know is 64. The side we don't know is x. So we're going to cross multiply. Sine of 74 times x equals 10 times the sine of 64. To get x by itself, we need to divide by the sine of 74. Those all cancel. Pick up your calculators. 10 times sine 64, close parentheses, divided by the sine of 74, and your calculator should spit out 9.4, because this is a word problem. We need units, and those units are miles. And that is the end of the lesson, and we will see you in class.